Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another social study, psychology, real life sort of video. I like doing these videos sometimes. It gives me something else to talk about. So, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. Super chat, PayPal, Patreon, whatever. Thank you if you do. I always think these conversations are pretty interesting, especially when you think about how you're brought up believing how relationships or encounters are supposed to happen between people. And it's, of course, always fascinating to me, someone that grew up, someone that has seen pretty opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of these sort of encounters with the opposite sex, you could say. Growing up extremely unpopular, rocks being thrown at my face, girls telling me how ugly I am, to being very popular with girls, to the point that people have stolen my pictures all over the internet, right? So I've had many different things and I've been to different countries. And of course, also, I know this is a long forward, I also think it's interesting from a nerd perspective that you'll see so many social justice warriors or people, oh my God, clutching their pearls, whatever, at this kind of stuff when it's like, dude, you're watching anime where everything is focused on young people, often middle school, whatever it is, right? And then, of course, you even think about, again, I know this is long forward, and this is always the real. I can only imagine what it's like to grow up trying to teach your kid about sex, etc. Where in America, there's this real push to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you would have sex with someone who's under 18, even though most places in America are 16. But let's teach our kids how to have a sex change and be gay. Just really weird. Am I the only one that thinks that's very extremely the hypocriticalness of this? You're not 18. You can't decide if you want to have sex yet. You're in elementary school. You can have a sex change, and let me teach you how to be gay. It's weird to me. But anyway, that was a 2 minute, 30 second almost forward. You know what? I saw this, right? And I've never seen the Suzume. I've seen the Your Name thing. I don't think I've seen the other one. I'm shocked this guy even got in trouble, to be honest with you. As someone who has spent almost a year of their life in Japan, I got to be honest, it's shocking to me that is someone getting in trouble in Japan for something like this is pretty shocking to me. And I would almost think of it as something like either they wanted money for him or he was doing something very, very degenerate. Like they must have been very, very young, like very, very young, because most people in Japan, I've said it before, they don't give a fuck, dude. This idea when I was growing up, before I went to Japan, and maybe you've been the same, you would see stuff like, oh, Japan, the dark side of Japan. Oh my God. Idols and, people cheating on each other in their marriages, loveless marriages. Cheating is okay. Once you go to Japan, you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty normal. Now, the actual dark side, and I've said this before, when you go to Japan, and you have to understand that, and I've said this so many times, you got to try to get into the mindset of a Japanese person, right? And I've even said before, dude, and I think it was on Instagram that it happened. I was literally Instagramming, and a girl came up to me, and we started talking about it. I know I've talked about it on YouTube, but it may have been Instagram, and she came up to me. I was just sitting at the park one day. Girl came up to me and we started talking, and her English was good enough that we could talk with my broken Japanese, blah, blah, blah. And she's telling me, she's like, yeah, I always wanted to be an escort when I was in middle school. I just was worried I wasn't pretty enough, and also other things you gotta remember. Think about when I'm in Japan, dude, I've had people even tell me, because when girls come up to me, I'll be like, are you old enough? I've actually said that so many times that guys have come up to me and asked me, what's wrong with you? Why do you ask how old the girls are? They're like, Japan, nobody cares. Nobody cares. They're like, you're not going to hurt anybody, right? And I'm like, well, no. And they're like, nobody cares. They're like, this is not how Japanese people think, right? So again, to go back, what I'm saying, the dark side of Japan is, and this is not that nothing bad ever happens in Japan. Of course, I've heard bad stories, right? But the dark side is that because generally speaking, nobody hurts anybody. And you could say that the country is so, generally speaking, sexually free, you know, because a girl, younger girl, I mean, there are sometimes you see in the city younger guys or whatever, I guess, right? I don't know how prevalent it is. I'm not gay, so I don't know. But, you know, sometimes, there's this idea that if you go to the city, you know what you're there for. And I've talked to so many people about it, you know, and it's like, but nobody is going to hurt you. So it's safe to live this like fantasy or to have this sexual encounter. You know what I mean? Now, of course, like I said, I've talked to, and you could say of dudes of all walks of life. I sat down to like a catcher dude, right? Japanese guy, and he just sat down with me. He's been in jail, all this kind of stuff. He's kind of like a hard. He for a Japanese dude, he was pretty hardcore, but he was like a suave kind of looking guy. He might have been a host boy before. I've met had conversations with a number of people who used to be host boys, right? But he's an older guy now, but he's a good looking guy. And we were talking about the sex stuff, and he's like, well, it's okay because you're in the city. He's like, if I'm in the suburbs, basically, I'm not gonna have sex with all these young girls because then it's a little bit, that's not where you do it. You have to understand that this is like the ether. This is the controlled ether. This is the madness, whatever, where it happens. But nobody hurts each other, so it's okay. So you're safe to live this sort of free will because once you go to the suburbs, you're like a robot. No one has any life. The city is the one time that you're allowed to have your life. That's why you see so many people drunk. Nobody really cares. A lot of laws in Japan are basically almost just a facade, you could say, right? You could almost say a lot of laws are only there because they want to seem more, quotation marks, modernized for American audiences, but a lot of people don't care. It's pretty rare to see someone get in trouble, right? But again, I'm rambling now. The dark side of Japan would actually be that because nobody would ever care enough, quotation marks, to hurt you, nobody actually cares about you to actually love you or be empathetic, right? And that's an actual dark side of Japan when you think about like the psychological aspect. Like I said, I've been with girls before. They started crying. They said no one in their entire life has actually asked if they're okay or not, right? I was like, Jesus Christ, that was not the move, you know? And again, I've told stories before. You'll hear stories about, God, there's that one story. The girl asked her friends, "How do I kill myself?" And her friends taught her how to kill herself, and then she went and killed herself right there. There's a dark side, right? There's not saying that there's no bad things ever. Of course, a dark side does mean a bad thing, but what I mean, like, not saying that I've never heard of anybody getting hurt, because I do, but again, when you think about, oh my God, it's like child, and then it's like, oh, it's a 15-year-old girl, it's a 14-year-old girl, something like that. That's pretty normal for Japan. I hate to break it to you. If you think that's not normal in Japan, I don't think you've actually lived in Japan, actually talked to real people. It's just not the way that it works. And again, the hypocritical thing is, I always think it's so funny that, especially because think the nerd ideology and the overly radical LGBTQ, all this kind of stuff. Oh my God, can't believe someone would have sex with a 15-year-old girl, 14-year-old, whatever it was. Oh my God, he's so gross. And it's like, dude, are you actually watching the anime? Again, this one, okay, how about this? This is one of the first things I said when I went to Japan the first time. I remember playing Persona, all that kind of stuff, and I saw vending machines everywhere in Persona. And then I went to Japan. I'm like, oh my God, there really are vending machines everywhere. You have to realize, just like in anime, when you see anime and it suddenly rains and the girl's boobs. And I remember thinking, that, oh my God, does every anime have to have the sudden rain pour, girl's boobs, she's wet? But then you actually live in your Japan and you're like, this actually happens. This happens. What is going on? Because sometimes it just rains so much. And umbrellas are one of the only thing that people steal in Japan. People might steal your umbrella. Generally, they don't steal it, but they might steal your umbrella. It happens, dude. You have to realize the mindset when you see people in anime, these middle schools all going on. Yeah, dude. That's Japan, dude. I hate to break it to you. And again, the hypocritical thing is crazy because, especially, I always got to talk shit about the overly radical LGBTQ because of they've taken something that's supposed to be for good and they've used it for absolute evil, But people like I think you could. I was looking at some of the comments. Oh my god, someone has sex with someone that's under 18. He's a pedophile. Jeez Christ, I hate to break it to you. Most places in America are even 16. And you are watching anime. I hate to break it to you, although people don't actually throw fireballs and, that kind of stuff in Japan, a lot of stuff you see in anime is how Japan actually works. If people actually trust you to tell you, right? Okay. It's just that a lot of this more sexual stuff only happens in the city. You don't do it in the suburbs, right? It's weird. Japan, just kind of this thing. It's just the way that it works. The psychology. I always think that the psychology of stuff is interesting when you try to get into the mindset of understanding the way that things work. And even think, and as someone that's only been to Japan, I can only imagine what places like Thailand are or something like that, right? Like, oh my God, the stories I've heard from Thailand. And I hate to break it to you, guys are not the only perverts, let's say. I have talked to girls who say that they like Thailand for reasons, okay? Human sexuality, it's a thing, right? God, so I've never been to Thailand. God, I can only imagine South America. The stories you hear in South America, God, aren't most South Americans like the legal age is 13 in most places? The stories I have heard from, and again, I've found out some of these stories from my pictures being stolen all over the internet. So I've talked to people from all different countries. I said before, I talked to Spanish girls and they've told me that one of the biggest culture shocks in America is that why do people say they're boyfriend and girlfriend and they're not having sex? And they're like, if you're not having sex in middle school, where I live, people think you're kind of weird. They're like, it seems kind of strange. Like, it's just a normal thing there. Like, a lot of this sort of, I think you have to, remember, too, that you might be poisoned, isn't the exact word, but you might be biased to thinking that the world is just what you think it is in America, right? A lot of these other countries don't work that way. So when I see that this guy got in trouble for this, as someone that has lived in Japan before, I've spent almost a year of my life in Japan, I'm shocked. It would make me think that he must have done something extraordinary, extremely degenerate, or they must have wanted money for him because he's famous or something, because I can tell you it's not normal. Just like when I've talked about before, there was that gang member dude that, I say gang loosely, but I guess he did have ties to the Yakuza, right? So, I heard that he died. I've talked to the authorities. I've talked to many people around the area. Guess what? Everyone knew that he loved fucking young girls. It was his thing. And you know what, though? Everyone said, God, he's an awesome guy. Everyone thought he was an awesome guy. No one cared about the sex thing. That's my water bottle. It wasn't, I didn't make a toot. That was the Fiji. The Fiji did me dirty. But anyway, I don't know. I think these conversations are interesting because, I don't know. I always find them fascinating. And again, I think about my life growing up and I think about God, I think about wishing that somebody would like me, having rocks thrown in my face, growing up so unpopular, and then all of a sudden girls liked me, girls wanted to be with me. Then you're dying the next minute. Nobody wants to talk to you. Oh, then then you get so popular to the point that your pictures are stolen all over the internet. Girls messaging you everywhere. Just talking to other countries, finding out how things work there, just actually living in other countries. I don't know. I just think, I don't know. I guess I'm really sort of, I just see this stuff and I'm just thinking, again, my thought is, wow, what did he actually do? That's weird to get in trouble in Japan. It's pretty strange, I would say. And then I see the comments of like people clutching their pearls and they probably jack off the lolly hentai or shit. So it's like, I'm just not impressed. I just really hate, again, I'm always a person that, hypocritical kind of stuff. I just hate people lying and God, how I've seen people before in Japan. So, oh my God, I can't believe you like young girls, blah blah blah. And they'll say that stuff in public, and then you see the first thing you see them doing, trying to fuck a young girl. You know what I mean? When somebody's not watching, it's just like, I don't know, dude. Sex is an interesting thing, I guess, but I don't know. The stories I've heard, dude. The stories, I mean, I feel like any story that you've heard in a porno, any sort of, I mean, to be honest, I guess I could say, maybe I could say this is someone that doesn't watch a lot of porno, so maybe there could be porno about it, but maybe it's someone that doesn't watch a lot of porno. It's never really a big hentai guy. Of course, I've watched hentai before, but I can say the stories that I've heard in real life from people are more crazy than anything I've ever heard about in any porno. To be honest with you, from just girls in real life talking to them, all that kind of stuff, you know. But I think the stories are interesting. But I mean, God, even look at that, or even look at that one story. I fucking told that story. I met that teacher guy, an American teacher who now lives in Japan, right? Not a teacher anymore, but he had told me, God, you think about that people are so innocent. He said that he had to stop being a teacher because his first year they made him in charge of like sixth grade students, and the girl, and he's actually a pretty good looking guy, so I can see it. And he said the girls were so flirty with him that it was making him crazy. He said he walked in and a girl just diddling herself while looking at him and like biting her lip, and she wanted to do him. And he's like, whoa. And he went right to the principal. He's like, I don't think I could take this. I have to tell the parents or some shit like that. And the principal was like, you can't tell the parents because the parents will say it's you. And they'll say, no way, our daughter, no, she's too young, blah, 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 blah. He's like, what the fuck? And so he just left, right? He's like, I can't believe that I should not have been. He's like, something, don't get in charge of like horny girls going through puberty because they're going crazy, right? But again, not a politically correct conversation, but I always think that those, crazy shit, dude, right? But anyway, remember if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end. We're back because I forgot something I wanted to add. A deeper conversation about this too. And I was actually talking with some girls about this and other people. I was actually wondering too. And I had this experience myself, right? Because especially when COVID was going on, I had so many, girls were coming up to me, blah, blah, blah. And I told the story before how, these girls were coming up to me. They're like, well, we don't go to school anymore. And they're like, well, how am I going to meet guys, right? I can't meet anybody, right? And I actually thought about this, and you can put this in the comments. This is a deeper conversation, right? And again, I was having some conversations, talking to some people as well. Do you think that COVID made people more horny? I know this sounds weird, right? I know it sounds weird, but this is like a deeper conversation. Can you imagine going through, you're going through puberty and all this kind of stuff, those sexual feelings, all this kind of stuff, and just think that there were years where boys and girls, they never got to have their prom. They never got to have their first love at school, right? And I was talking to some girls about it just recently, and they're like, yeah, they're like, I have some girlfriends, and they're like, yeah, a lot of girls, because they didn't go to school, they were finding whoever they could, right? They would going up to people in real life or finding older guys on the internet because older guys probably didn't care, right? You know what I mean? So that's like a deeper part of this. Do you think that COVID made people more horny or made these huge age gap things even more likely to happen? Because if you think about this guy, Maybe he was flirting with this girl while she was doing COVID. I don't know if Japan closed down stuff during COVID though. I'm not sure, but for America, oh my God, and other European countries, we were talking about it recently, and they're like, yeah, they're like, what are you gonna do? We can't meet a boy in school, so we're trying to meet whoever we can online, right? I was thinking about it. That's a deeper part of this conversation, but I think it's a thought provoking one. Anyway, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you can. Appreciate it. Thanks. The end.